Houston. Damn. Yeah, I like that.
Where I come from, different from the Hollywood scene, which is why I stay in the background.
It's basically what they do to get you out of town.
You're coming off innocent, acting all nervous and
Because it's too many Fruit Loops in the Hollywood scene.
Just wanna reassure you.
When it comes to, you know, taking you someplace and making you do something and sugarcoating you, I say no to it.
storm fall straight through. I see me, I see you.
I'm a baller, man. I'm a baller as far as money goes.
Ain't nothing wrong if you be into it, babe.
Certain mafia, I had to get out that industry, man, for a second and take a breather. The way they was marking me, I wanted to come out with my real record. That record was written for me. I didn't come out with that record.
You know what I'm saying? If I have to, I'll go at your head. For real.
Not yours.
I won't miss.
You know what I mean? They put that Michael Jackson jacket on me, you know, made me wear that jacket.
I like that.
You know, I got an eye injury, you know what I'm saying, dealing with certain thugs.
If you be into it,
Still dealing with certain gangsters.
baby, I ain't mad at you.
The clothes I was wearing wasn't really me.
Damn, I like it.
1 minute he was on top of the world, performing alongside G-Unit and the Ying Yang Twins. The next, locked in a hotel room, covered in blood, after committing one of the most disturbing acts in music history. Houston had the voice, the look, and a hit song that had the entire industry backing him. So why did his career vanish overnight? Was it mental illness, industry sabotage, or was Houston telling the truth when he claimed the music business was full of sins and devils? And the most chilling part, when they found him that night, he looked them dead in the eye and said, "I had to do it. Now I'm free." This is the dark truth behind Houston's rise and fall. Before the shocking headlines, before the eerie conspiracy theories, Houston Summers IV was just a kid from Los Angeles with a voice that could have made him a household name. Born and raised in LA, Houston grew up surrounded by music. He attended the prestigious Academy of Music and Performing Arts at Hamilton High School, where he joined several singing groups, sharpening his skills. But talent alone doesn't guarantee success. It was one random street performance that changed everything. One day, someone from Capitol Records stumbled upon footage of Houston singing on a street corner. And just like that, his life changed forever. Capitol wasted no time. They saw the it factor, the look, the charisma, the voice. Houston was signed, and in 2004, he exploded onto the scene with his debut single, I Like That. Now, if you were outside in the early 2000s, you know this song was everywhere. McDonald's even put it in one of their commercials. Featuring Chingy, I-20, and the legendary Nate Dogg, the song became an instant summer anthem. It rocketed to #1, 3 on the Billboard R&B hip-hop songs chart, and turned Houston into R&B's next big thing. And Capitol wasn't stopping there. Later that year, Houston dropped his debut album, It's Already Written. Gold certification, over 500,000 copies sold. Features from some of the biggest names in music, Jermaine Dupri, LaToya Luckett, Jazzy Fa. He had the talent, the cosigns, the industry backing. It was all coming together. He even landed a coveted spot performing at Summer Jam 2004, rubbing shoulders with G-Unit and the Ying Yang Twins. Houston was on the fast track to superstardom, or at least, that's what everyone thought. Because behind the scenes, something was very wrong, and the first warning sign came during an interview where Houston showed up, completely out of it. Houston was living the dream. Hit records, award show appearances, and performances with some of the biggest names in music. But if you were paying attention, the cracks were already starting to show. It started subtly, small things people brushed off, a slurred response here, a strange comment there. But then came the interview. Houston appeared on Live with Pete Finch, and right from the jump, something was off. He walked onto the set with a drink in his hand. Now, artists showing up lit wasn't unheard of, but this was different. His energy was strange, his speech was slow, and his answers barely made sense. At first, people blamed it on the alcohol, but then the rumors started. Was he just partying too hard, or was something much deeper going on? By late 2004, those rumors were confirmed. Houston was placed under psychiatric care. According to reports, Houston was battling manic depression and schizophrenia. His management team, along with Capitol Records, had to step in because, get this, his own family was in denial. They didn't believe anything was wrong with him. Things escalated quickly. Every single one of his performances and interviews from October to December 2004 canceled. And that's when the industry whispers turned into full-blown concern. Because behind closed doors, Houston wasn't just struggling. He was spiraling. He wasn't taking his medication. He was saying things that alarmed the people around him. And when Capitol tried to slow things down and get him help, another problem popped up. His family. His management team didn't want him traveling, but his family, they ignored the warnings and got a doctor's note clearing him to go overseas. And just like that, Houston was on a plane to London, a decision that would lead to one of the most disturbing moments in music history. Because what happened next? Nobody saw coming. Houston's trip to London was supposed to be a comeback, a chance to show Capitol Records he was ready to work again. But from the moment he landed, things went south. His team started noticing bizarre behavior. He was constantly clutching a Bible, mumbling about fighting sins and devils in the industry. He refused to go anywhere without it, as if it was the only thing protecting him. At first, his crew brushed it off. Maybe he was just feeling pressure. Maybe he was just in his head. But by the time they checked into the hotel, it was clear Houston was unraveling. Then, on one terrifying night in February 2005, everything came to a breaking point. Houston was found standing at the window of his 13th floor hotel room, ready to jump. His security team rushed in just in time, pulling him away from the ledge. They knew they had to do something fast. His team moved him to a lower floor for safety and locked him in his room. They figured a night of rest would help, but when they returned from dinner later that evening, Houston was nowhere to be found. The door was still locked, but inside, a scene straight out of a horror movie. Houston was lying on the bed. A towel covered his face. And the most chilling detail? A pool of blood on the floor. His bodyguard panicked. He yanked the towel off Houston's face, and his eye was gone. He had gouged out his own eye. And the worst part? He wasn't screaming. He wasn't panicked. He was completely calm. Houston looked his bodyguard straight in the face and said, "I had to do it. Now I'm free." Let that sink in. This wasn't just a breakdown. This was something darker, something that didn't make sense. Was it mental illness? A spiritual crisis? Or, as Houston would later claim, was he running from something the industry didn't want us to see? Because after that night, he was never the same again. After that horrifying night in London, Houston's career was over. His eye was gone. His mind was shattered, and his future in music completely derailed. But here's where things get really weird. Because when Houston finally spoke out about what happened, his version of events wasn't just shocking, it was terrifying. In interviews, Houston started making bizarre claims about the music industry. He said he had been subjected to sins and devils behind the scenes, things he wasn't prepared for because of his Christian upbringing, drugs, alcohol, people trying to manipulate him, and something much darker. He suggested that there were forces in the industry trying to control him, that the music business wasn't just about talent, it was about what you were willing to do behind closed doors. And here's the eerie part. He's not the only artist who has said this. Houston's words echoed the same allegations made by other artists who claimed the industry wasn't what it seemed, that behind the flashing lights and hit records, there was a price to pay for success. But while Houston was warning people about the industry, his family was telling a completely different story. His sister, Billy Summers, went on record saying he never tried to take his own life. She claimed his injury was a complete accident and that Houston was not mentally ill, not taking medication, and not under psychiatric care. But let's be real. Does that make any sense? This man lost his eye in a hotel room by himself? And we're supposed to believe it was an accident? His ex-managers didn't buy it either. According to them, his family was the real problem. They claimed that Houston's family was making terrible business decisions on his behalf, that his mother convinced him to turn down a publishing deal that could have set him up financially for life. Instead of living like a successful artist, Houston was stuck in a cramped two-bedroom apartment with people who were allegedly spending his money. So the question is, was Houston a victim of his own mental health struggles? Or was he caught between an industry that wanted to use him and a family that didn't know how to protect him? Either way, his time in the spotlight was over. And when Houston finally resurfaced years later, he had a lot more to say about why he walked away. Houston's music career wasn't just derailed by his mental health struggles. His financial situation was just as chaotic. And if you ask his former managers, they put the blame directly on his family. According to his ex-management team, Houston should have been set for life. After a gold-certified album and a hit song that was played everywhere, he should have been living in a mansion, driving luxury cars, and stacking generational wealth. But instead, He was living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 4 other people, and according to his team, those people were draining his bank account. But it gets worse. Capitol Records allegedly offered Houston a lucrative publishing deal, something that could have secured his future, even if he never recorded another song again. But his mother, she convinced him to turn it down. His ex-managers begged him to reconsider. They told him this deal was his safety net, but Houston refused, reportedly under pressure from his family. And as a result, he lost out on money that could have kept him financially stable long after the industry moved on. His team also claimed Houston missed out on other major opportunities, collabs, endorsements, tours, all because of bad financial decisions and the people around him. But Houston's sister denied all of this. She claimed his former managers were just slandering his name and trying to cover up their own failures. She insisted that Houston's downfall wasn't about money or family drama. She said he was still in control of his life, and that whatever happened to his eye, whatever happened in London, had nothing to do with the music industry. But let's be real, something wasn't adding up. This was a man who had the entire industry behind him just a year earlier, a man who had been positioned to be one of R&B's biggest new stars. So how did he go from hit records to total obscurity, almost overnight? Maybe the answer lies in what Houston himself said when he finally spoke out about the industry. Because when he finally reappeared in 2008, he didn't hold back. After years of silence, Houston finally resurfaced in 2008, but instead of making a musical comeback, he came back with a message. He appeared on Hood News. No Capitol Records, no industry backing, just him, a camera, and a whole lot to say. And the first thing he did, he took off his sunglasses. For the first time, he publicly revealed his missing eye. And when the interviewer asked him what really happened that night in London, Houston didn't dodge the question. He didn't give some PR-friendly answer. Instead, he said, "There's too many Fruit Loops in the Hollywood scene." Yeah, let that sink in. He didn't go into details, but the implication was clear. He had to get out. Houston claimed that after signing his record deal, he realized the industry wasn't what it seemed, that it was controlling, manipulative, and full of people who wanted to take artists to places and make them do things they didn't want to do. And he refused. He said that in the music industry, if you don't play by their rules, they'll shut you out. He also revealed that even before his breakdown, he had already made up his mind to leave. Because according to him, he wasn't allowed to be himself. He couldn't put out the kind of music he wanted. He couldn't dress the way he wanted. He couldn't even act how he wanted. The industry had a formula, and if you didn't follow it, you were disposable. And that wasn't all. Houston also started a movement. He became an advocate for men who had been taken advantage of while incarcerated, speaking out about the abuse and corruption that happens behind bars. And most importantly, he told everyone to keep Christ in their lives. For Houston, leaving the industry wasn't just about mental health. It wasn't just about money. It was about getting out of something that he felt was deeply wrong. And just like that, he disappeared again. But not before one last run-in with the law. Because in 2012, Houston made headlines one last time. After years of staying under the radar, Houston's name popped up in the headlines again in 2012. And unfortunately, it wasn't for a comeback. He was pulled over near Malibu, California for driving erratically. When police approached the car, they immediately noticed a strong odor coming from inside. Suspicion of DUI? Yep, he was detained and spent the night in jail before being released the next day. But here's where things get weird. By March 2013, the DUI charge was mysteriously dropped. Not reduced, not negotiated down, completely dropped. And his $100 fine? Suspended. No real explanation was ever given. Now, was this just a legal technicality, or was there something else going on behind the scenes? Because after that, Houston completely vanished. No new music, no public appearances, no social media. Even his official artist YouTube channel was wiped clean. It was like he never existed. And that left fans wondering, what really happened to Houston? Is he finally living in peace? Did he escape the industry? Or is he still struggling behind the scenes? The only thing we know for sure, the music industry moved on without him. And now, the man who once had an entire generation dancing to I Like That is nothing more than a cautionary tale. A young star with all the talent in the world, but a system that chews people up and spits them out. So, whether Houston's downfall was mental illness, industry sabotage, bad family decisions, or a mix of all three, his story remains one of R&B's most mysterious and tragic what-ifs, and we may never hear from him again. So what really happened to Houston? Was he just another young star who cracked under the pressures of fame, Or was he telling the truth when he warned us about the dark side of the music industry? One thing is for sure. Houston's story is one of the most bizarre and tragic in R&B history. A promising artist who had the voice, the charisma, and the industry backing to go all the way, only to lose it all in one horrifying night. And now, he's a ghost. No music, no appearances, no social media. Even his entire digital footprint has been scrubbed. And maybe that's how he wants it. Maybe after everything, the fame, the pressure, the breakdown, the betrayal, Houston finally found peace. Or maybe there's more to the story that we'll never know. Either way, Houston will always be remembered for his 2004 hit I Like That, a song that, to this day, still gets played, still gets sampled, still gets people moving. But as for Houston himself, he remains one of the biggest what-ifs in R&B history. And with no trace of him left in the industry, we may never get the real story.